Coming up on this Friday edition of Newsline at noon, divers searching for more than 70 passengers still missing from the Sewol-ho ferry disaster find a body in waters 4 kilometers away from the accident site. North Korea's political instability and escalating threats against the South point to a prolonged period of strained inter-Korean relations. Plus, the nominee to be the next U.S. ambassador to Seoul, Mark Lippert, seeks stronger security ties among South Korea, the U.S., and Japan, a move likely to perturb China as well as North Korea. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. It's noon Friday, May 2nd here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in live from Seoul. I'm Ju.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start with the latest on the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. It was another long and difficult night for the search and rescue teams at the accident site. The confirmed death toll now stands at 226, with 76 people, mostly teenagers, still unaccounted for some 2.5 weeks after the disaster.
For the latest on the search operation and the ongoing investigation, our Kim Hyun-bin joins us from the news center. Hyun-bin, let's first start with the search efforts.
Hey, Ju, the number of passengers confirmed dead continues to creep up slowly, with 5 additional bodies recovered this morning. The bodies of 3 male students were found in the lobby area on the 4th floor, and 1 passenger was found on the 3rd floor lobby. 1 female student was found 4 kilometers southeast of the accident site. Officials had been hoping to speed up operations, but rapid tidal currents and bad weather, as well as debris and poor visibility, hampered the divers in their search. Divers are currently searching open cabins, but there are plans to forcibly open blocked sections using special equipment from the Navy and firefighters from this Sunday. The blocked sections are where many of the passengers still missing are believed to be trapped. To speed up the search, officials tried again to dispatch a diving bell to help divers stay underwater for longer, but was withdrawn, proving ineffective against the notoriously rapid currents around the accident site.
They've had nothing but problems with that diving bell, it seems. Very unfortunate there. Give us an update on the ongoing investigation into this tragedy. We hear prosecutors and police have requested arrest warrants against 2 officials from the ferry operator.
Yeah, that's right. Within the last hours, the authorities issued an arrest warrant for 2 officials from the Changhae Marine Company on charges of manslaughter. Investigators are looking into the possibility that overloading and illegal renovation of the vessel may have played a role in its capsize, and the 2 officials played a key role in these factors. Investigators think containers loaded on the ferry were only tied down with rope, which caused the cargo to slide when the ship lost balance.
And what about the investigation into the owners of the ferry company and his closest associates?
Well, more than 10 locations linked to Yu Byung-eun, the owner of Changhae Marine Company, have been raided. The homes of Byung Gi-chun and Hwang Ho-eun, who ran the company, were searched. Prosecutors are also continuing to pile the pressure on Yu's closest associates. Yu's son, Yoo Hyuk-ki, and Hanguk Pharma chief Kim Hae-kyung have been summoned for questioning today, but the younger Yoo did not meet the deadline as he's in the United States. The prosecution also applied for arrest warrants for Song Guk-pin, chief of the Tapada company, which is also owned by Yoo. The prosecution suspects Song was deeply involved in the embezzlement of hundreds of thousands of dollars in irregular transactions involving the Yoo family. Well, this has been Kim Hyun-bin reporting from the News Center.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea, connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on Newsline at noon with Mark Broom and Ju.
I'm Ju.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics.
North Korea has replaced its number 2 Choi You-sun with a new player. The rapidly up-and-coming Hwang Byung-seo has been named the regime's top military commander. No word yet on the reason behind the sudden shakeup. Arirang News' Hwang Seung-hee reports.
Out goes Choi You-sun, in comes Hwang Byung-seo. North Korea has replaced its top military commander and a sign the regime's young leader may be struggling to maintain his grip on power. Reporting on a May Day event Friday, the North Korean Central News Agency introduced Hwang as the country's military politburo chief. North Korea watchers are keeping a close eye on Hwang, who was promoted to the position of vice marshal less than 2 weeks after becoming a 4-star general. Why Choi was replaced remains unclear, but Kim Jong-un's recent criticism of military officers suggests it could be more than Choi's reported health problems. The latest power shift comes less than 6 months since the execution of Kim's uncle Jang Song-taek, and some see it as a sign the young leader's grip on power is still shaky. Experts say Hwang's speedy promotion may be intended to cap the power of Choi, who has been serving as North Korea's de facto number 2. Meanwhile, hopes for better inter-Korean ties are fading fast amid the regime's ongoing threats of a 4th nuclear test and cross-border slandering. North Korea has been stepping up its aggressive rhetoric since U.S. President Barack Obama's visit to Seoul last week, when he vowed to stand shoulder to shoulder with South Korea against any provocation by the North. Experts say this is part of North Korea's efforts to find its way back to the negotiating table. Hwang Seung-hee, Arirang News.
The United Nations is once again calling on North Korea to immediately halt its systematic human rights abuses. Meeting for the Universal Periodic Review of North Korea's human rights records at the Human Rights Council in Geneva on Thursday, UN diplomats urged Pyongyang to end its systematic and widespread human rights violations, ranging from extrajudicial killings, torture, and child labor. They paid special attention to the North's notorious political prison camp system, where some 120,000 people are thought to be detained. The North Korean representative defended their existence and claimed the regime has improved the country's legal frameworks by enacting laws to protect the underprivileged. Washington has tapped its next ambassador to South Korea. He's currently the chief of staff to Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel and has been a close advisor to U.S. President Barack Obama for years. Our Kwon Soo-ha tells us more about him.
Mark Lippert, one of U.S. President Barack Obama's oldest and closest aides, has been nominated to be the United States' next ambassador to South Korea. Multiple diplomatic sources say the U.S. government notified Seoul of the impending announcement during President Obama's visit to the nation last week. If confirmed by the U.S. Senate, Lippert will replace the current ambassador Song Kim in the second half of the year. Kim, whose 3-year term is nearing an end, is expected to return to the State Department in September. As for Lippert's credentials, the 41-year-old is currently Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel's chief of staff. At the age of 32, he became the foreign policy advisor to then-Senator Barack Obama. 4 years later, he was appointed as National Security Council Chief of Staff and in 2012 as Assistant Secretary of Defense for Asian and Pacific Security Affairs. Experts anticipate that Lippert will strengthen relations between Seoul and Washington. Former Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Kurt Campbell was quoted as saying that South Korea would be lucky to have Lippert, who is close to the president, as U.S. ambassador. Lippert is expected to focus on bolstering trilateral cooperation between the U.S., Korea, and Japan, particularly when it comes to countering North Korean threats. According to Pentagon officials, Lippert believes that security cooperation and historical disputes should be approached separately. This could be a concern to Korea due to sensitivity over Tokyo's interpretation of history and territorial claims. Nevertheless, South Korea's embassy welcomes Lippert's nomination as he has a good reputation among diplomats in the country. Kwon Soo-ha, Arirang News.
Koreans will take to the polls in just over a month from now for local elections, but the Sewol-ho ferry tragedy looms over the campaigns, which are now just beginning to take shape. It's also having an effect on the president's approval ratings. Our Choi You-sun tells us more.
The Sewol-ho ferry disaster has completely overshadowed the upcoming local elections. With only about a month to go before voting, election campaigning has all but halted as the entire nation is in a state of mourning. Both the ruling and the opposition parties are forced to keep their electioneering relatively low-key amid public criticism over the inability of political leaders to cope with such disasters. A latest survey shows poor government handling of the man-made disaster pushed President Park Geun-hye's popularity ratings to below 50% for the first time in a year. With lawmakers rushing to pass legislation related to maritime and vessel safety, the focus of the election has also shifted to public safety. In the past, it was the government and ruling party that suffered the most from a disaster, giving the opposition the upper hand. But this time around, public mistrust spreads from the government through both ends of the political aisle. Some political observers say voters may turn their back on the elections as they feel despondent and helpless from the accident. The low-key campaigning and low voter turnout may work against the ruling party as that increases the chances of incumbent candidates retaining their posts. Currently, the opposition holds both mayoral posts in the politically significant capital Seoul and nearby Incheon. Other pundits say if the ruling party puts forth a cabinet reshuffle card before the June 4th elections, it still has a good chance of influencing voter sentiment. Choi You-sun, Arirang News.
Paying his condolences to the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, Korea's Finance Minister Hyun Oh-suk has called on all government ministries to work on correcting irregularities. Hyun's comments came at a meeting on Friday with other policymakers where he also emphasized the need to do everything possible to support the victims and their families. On a separate issue, Hyun pledged to help local companies advance into emerging markets through free trade deals. The government believes this will provide emerging economies with growth opportunities as well. Korea's tourism balance was in the red for the 22nd straight month in March. This according to the Bank of Korea and the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute, who put the deficit at some $21 million. On the brighter side, the shortfall is narrowing, though, dropping by nearly 35% on year in the first quarter, thanks to a surge in spending by foreign tourists, particularly those from China. Despite the continual growth rate in the number of visitors coming to Korea, the country has logged a tourism deficit every year since 2001. Now, the tablet PC market continues to expand worldwide, but the pace of growth is slowing. International Data Corporation, an American market research firm, says worldwide tablet shipments came in at more than 50 million units in the first quarter. That's up just 3.9% from the same period a year earlier. The sluggish growth is being attributed to the rising popularity of large screen phones and people holding on to their existing tablets for longer periods of time. Apple still dominates the market with a global market share of 32.5%, but Samsung is gaining ground fast. Samsung's tablets make up 22.3% in the first quarter. That's up 32% from the same period a year earlier. One of the best things about living in Korea is that a wide range of delicious food is only a phone call away. Mobile applications are also jumping into the food delivery market, and business is booming. Connie Kim reports.
Food menus meet with internet technology. This is the concept a growing number of people are embracing in Korea, including 36-year-old Im Hyun-woo. Returning from work after a long day, Im opens a food delivery application on his smartphone and scrolls down to decide what he wants to eat.
I live alone, so I usually order from food delivery applications. There's a lot more variety to choose from. I don't have to worry about losing menus.
These types of food delivery application companies have created a profitable business model. They receive around 13% of every order in commission fees from participating restaurants.
It's another way of tapping into the prospering food delivery market that is estimated at around $9.7 billion and growing at an annual rate of more than 20%.
The payment systems on smartphones have given direct access to hundreds of restaurants, helping the food delivery application market grow at a fast pace.
The love for delivery comes from the national character of Koreans who prefer things fast, faster, and fastest, which puts a premium on convenience. The rising demand has made the market a competitive one, with food delivery application companies battling it out for a bigger piece of the pie. In 2 years, experts say around 1/3 of the total delivery industry will be transferred to the online and mobile delivery market. New competitors are now looking to jump in. One social commerce company has been selling discount coupons of up to 30% for shoppers since February. Offering more options for a wider array of palettes in a convenient manner, it's a combination that's sure to continue enticing consumers to open their wallets and their front doors to food delivery men. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Time now for a look at the international headlines we're following this afternoon. For that, we join our Eunice Kim, who's standing by for us at the news center.
Eunice, pro-Russian activists in the eastern Ukrainian city of Donetsk have taken over yet another government building, and this time the prosecutor's office.
Yes, and in light of the intensifying unrest, Ukraine's acting president has reinstated mandatory military service. Here's Kim Min-ji with more.
What began as peaceful May Day celebrations quickly turned violent in Ukraine's eastern city of Donetsk as riot police clashed with pro-Russian activists to seize the prosecutor's office. Thousands of pro-Russian residents were on the streets on Thursday to join in a May Day parade. Protesters accused those inside the office of working for the Western-backed government in Kiev and threw rocks and firecrackers at riot police as they stormed the compound. Riot police responded by firing tear gas and stun grenades, but were forced to flee or were stripped of their riot gear.
The building of the prosecutor's office is under our control. Under our control. Under the people's control.
Pro-Russian activists now occupy a number of key government buildings in the east. The residents have declared it the People's Republic of Donetsk and called for a referendum on May 11th, despite a presidential election in Ukraine scheduled 2 weeks later. Ukraine's acting president on Thursday reinstated conscription amid the escalating unrest. Alexander Turchinov admitted a day earlier that his government had lost control of the east of the country. His announcement came hours after Russian President Vladimir Putin called on Ukraine to withdraw its troops in the eastern and southern regions. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the IMF said it will provide $17 billion in aid for Ukraine over a period of 2 years. The IMF deal calls for the interim government in Kiev to enact major reforms to its energy and financial sectors, which includes raising taxes and the price of gas by more than 50%. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And let's turn now to Colombia next, where rescuers are pouring through rubble of a collapsed underground gold mine in search of up to 30 people feared trapped inside. The illegal mine is in southwest Colombia. Rescuers have so far recovered 3 bodies. The governor of Cauca province said the accident happened shortly before midnight Wednesday local time. He added it appeared one of the walls had fallen through after the miners used machinery to pierce huge holes to illegally extract gold. And late last week, 4 miners were killed by poisonous gas in a separate illegal mine further northwest. Chinese authorities say the terror attack carried out at an Urumqi train station earlier this week was the work of 2 suspects with a history of religious extremism. 3 died in the bomb and knife attack, including the 2 suspects. 79 others were wounded. Chinese President Xi Jinping called for decisive action in response, calling on his government to prepare itself for a, quote, long-term, complex and acute fight against Xinjiang separatists. He was concluding a 4-day tour of the Uyghur Autonomous Region when that attack took place. Wednesday's onslaught was the 3rd high-profile attack against civilians in 7 months, blamed on Xinjiang extremists. At least 33 people were killed in an airstrike over the largest Syrian city of Aleppo Thursday. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said government warplanes dropped missiles over a busy market in the rebel-controlled district. It follows a bombing over a school in southern Aleppo that killed 18 people a day before. Criticism continues to mount against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who is preparing for re-election in a June poll, as his government continues to pound rebel-held parts of Aleppo. More than 150,000 people have died in the 3 years of conflict against the Assad regime. And it was not the kind of closure they were asking for. Families of the missing Flight 370 were informed on Thursday by Malaysia Airlines that the support center for relatives based at Beijing's Lido Hotel would close on this Friday. Malaysia Airlines explained the move was meant to encourage relatives to receive updates from the comfort of their own homes. Families, however, were visibly distraught. More than 100 of the 239 passengers on board that flight were from China. Meanwhile, Malaysian authorities released a 5-page preliminary report on its probe of the missing plane. It found that related personnel had noticed the jetliner's disappearance from radar 17 minutes after the fact, and that an official rescue was not activated until 4 hours later.
Here with the latest weather update in Chindo and around the country. The strong currents in Chindo should begin to ease up tomorrow with the end of the spring tides today, but the waves and wind should be a bit stronger compared to yesterday, and thick fog has been blanketing the accident site since this morning. But as for the rest of the country, the dazzling morning sunshine should gradually give way to clouds as we head into the afternoon. And scattered sprinkles are in the picture for the Seoul metropolitan area in the mid-afternoon, but the southern provinces will have temperatures hovering in the mid to upper 20s this afternoon, so it should feel quite hot later in the day. Well, the long weekend starts tomorrow. Next Monday is Children's Day and Tuesday is Buddha's birthday. And as for the weather condition here in the capital, temperatures should remain within the seasonal average range with a good amount of sunshine with a chance of nationwide shower on Sunday. So please do keep that in mind, and let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The afternoon high in Seoul will hike up to 22. Daegu and Gwangju should pick 29 and 25 respectively, while Busan tops out at 24. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like down on Jeju will reach 25, Daejeon peaks at 26, while Mount Kumgang sees a high of 21 this afternoon. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world.
Well, those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Mark and I will be back at the same time next week. Thank you for watching.